want to say something else, and that is, I live in Texas. I've lived there for 30 years. I know that we're not from Texas, but I knew I might be getting in trouble writing a book like this in bushland, and there is a big difference. That H makes a heck of a difference, doesn't it? Because Bush Senior, and I was just over in Austin on Monday giving a talk to the Aggie Club of Austin. I'm not making that up. There is an Aggie Club of Austin.
Both of them.
About 30 people were over there. But anyway, on Bush Senior versus Bush Junior, there is such a huge difference in their approach toward Iraq. And Senior in this book gets a pretty good interpretation, where I wouldn't say that about Junior. And also there is a huge difference between the war in Afghanistan and the unnecessary war in Iraq. I was on RTE, which is the Irish PBS. They have a program on there at 7:30 at night. There's 4 million Irish. Half of them watch this program. It's a huge one. And I'm sitting there, I was the American, they have to get an American to get the American side. I'm sitting up there with 4 Irish politicians and me, and the audience asked me, they wanted to focus in on me, do you think we should go, your country should go into Afghanistan? And I said, yeah, Bush 3 times asked the Taliban to turn over a man who attacked us and killed 2,800 of us. I mean, of course, we have to do that. We got the whole world with us. And all the Irish, yes, we do, yes, you're absolutely right. So there is a huge difference between Iraq and Afghanistan. Do we have any questions? Yes.
This is it's a little bit indirect, but it was alluded to that politicians don't listen to historians. I just want to know how long that barrier has been there, and has it eroded over the years, or do you have any hope for the future that perhaps there'll be more of a communication and actually some listening going on?
You're looking at me, so I'll make a comment, and I'll let the others comment. And actually, it's interesting that David pointed out that there, and I think Terry did too, that Bush and his people did take some lessons from Vietnam, and I think actually, I'd say wrong lessons, but again, going back to something George Herring once heard him say. George Herring once said that history is a dangerous weapon, and it should be handled with care. It should be put in the hands of people who have training and know how to use the weapon. Because people use history all the time, and they use it very dangerously. So, I mean, I think that it's like anybody can be their own historian, and we get making it up, and they get whatever, and they're remaking it, they're revising it, So that puts a lot of pressure on us to try to just be, year after year, class after class, book after book, just keep trying to plug away and keep, that's my reaction to that. But I would stand corrected, I think, a little bit on saying, well, they didn't learn. They learned all right, just trying to learn them.
I'd respond that I think there's levels to it. For example, I would argue many within the military are very well educated in relation to history. For example, I'm doing a collaborative project right now with Admiral Savarides, who is our NATO commander. He has a PhD from Fletcher School of International Diplomacy. Very well read, knows his history very well. His father actually commanded a battalion in the Da Nang perimeter, so he knows Vietnam extremely well. Now, there is a disconnect between them and oftentimes the politicians. So there is sometimes some problems, and that's why I think you see sometimes the DOD and others, they may not as vigorously protest publicly as what we would like them to do, but there are these internal battles that are going on, and again, I distinguish between the two. So I do think that there are levels to the process, and that we have to recognize that it's not as simple as nobody in government. I have friends that were in NIC, National Intelligence Community. They were warning against all these different things. Nobody listened. That's the problem. They
Right.
didn't want to listen.
Nobody listened. CIA people were warning too.
Yeah.
State Department people were warning. These are the things, no one listened there. I
They
mean,
didn't want to listen.
So I think it depends on the president. Here we had a president with a degree in history from Yale.
Yeah.
You know, did you want to say
Well,
something?
also, as David said, you know, and the difference between the two George Bushes, you know, the prudence, you know, how you know, if you read history as limits of power, as did Bush and Scowcroft,
Yeah.
then you craft a very different policy, not going to Baghdad in '91 for those exact reasons, because they didn't want to, you know, even as glibly as he said, we've kicked the Vietnam syndrome, he in fact was, you know, as the neoconservatives said, you know, not kicking it in their view, because that was appeasement. They left the dictator in place as they would have. And so yeah, I think they do, you know, but they cherry pick, well, this administration, as Terry Anderson points out so well, cherry pick so much of the intelligence, you know, that they cherry pick the history. And so, you know, another World War II would be, well, we occupied Germany and Japan and transformed those societies. We'll just do the same. You know, again, World War II is an appeasement. As
They
this
use the
concept.
analogy of Germany, of all places, for the occupation of Iraq. I mean, Germany's totally defeated. Well, we have 5 million troops there. I mean, totally defeated. It's a unified society. They've had a long, hard war. They're all worn out. They'll do whatever we say. Versus Iraq, which has 3 different types of people in it. And, you know, the whole campaign is, what, 18 days? I mean, it made no sense. Yes, sir.
Great panel. I have not read the book, but it's going to be on the very top of my list after this is a wonderful sort of result of a panel. I did want to sort of raise the point that even though it's a panel on Bush's wars, they are no longer Bush's wars. They're officially now Obama's wars.
I had a little chapter on that.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, when you get into Obama, I mean, one of the things that I think gets interesting, especially when you're making a comparison to Vietnam, is you could make an argument, however glibly, that one of the results of Vietnam was that it eliminated for a time, at least from national prominence, this figure of the liberal hawk. You know, it really got the nation into Vietnam in many ways. You know, it's the liberals' war in many ways initially. Whereas you could argue that these wars, particularly Afghanistan, has brought back sort of into the forefront this figure of the liberal hawk, which is Obama's. You know, Obama in many ways runs to the right of McCain on Afghanistan, and certainly is a much more of a hawk than, you know, many liberals and progressives are comfortable with now. So you talk. Did any of you speak to a little bit about that? You're getting at sort of domestic, you know, political implications for
August 2008. August 2008. It's in the book. Obama goes to the Veterans of Foreign Wars Convention, and he gets up and he tells them exactly what he's going to do. And he's doing exactly what he said. Exactly. He said, we're going to have a surge. It's going to be a small surge. That was the original thing, and we are going to continue the status of forces agreement. Status of forces agreement. Bush signed in December 2008 with Maliki. That's when he got the shoe thrown at him, remember? Okay, he signs this agreement. What does the agreement says? All of American combat troops will be out by August 2010. They're out, and all the rest of them are going to be out by the end of all of our training troops are going to be out by the end of 2011. So Obama is tied to the Bush-Maliki agreement, okay? And he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do in August of 2008 to the VFW. So America knew what he was going to do. He's just doing it. In other words, it's going to take a while to get out of these places.
If we ever fully do so.
Now I heard a couple, 3 days ago that Maliki might want us to stay longer in Iraq, which I think would be bad politically and a bad idea, period. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting, you know, this issue about 5 years from now, whatever. I mean, the difficult thing is once you exit, once it's old business, then it becomes very, very difficult to keep the edge on how terrible these mistakes were. I mean, somehow we survived it. We got out of there. I mean, you know, and I like your point about there's going to be cycles of this. There's going to be influence that are be revisiting it. Something else is going to come up to revisit the issue again. I mean, it's hard to know how it's going to play out.